Yo, tell you what I want, what I really, really want. Don't tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. Don't tell me what you want.
While the internet is constantly pouring information into our new generation of technology, the music scene is changing. We rely on devices like iTunes and Pandora to introduce us to our new favorite artists, rather than discovering them on our go-to radio stations. We can never go back to our more traditional ways, but the greatness of the past does not only lie in how music was found, but more importantly, the music itself.
Um, like any type of music was cool back then. Just all my friends were really diverse, so I listened to a lot of different stuff like Led Zeppelin. So just whatever was popular at that time. I think that was basically like hip hop because it was like Criss Cross. It was like so many different people were coming out like new.
Also, in the early 19s, fashions worn by hip hop artists were becoming one of the biggest influencers. And because of the growing popularity of hip hop music among the suburban community, urban styles were seen everywhere, and not just in the big city. By the late 1900s, hip hop styles were arguably the most popular among young people. Starting in the mid 1990s, industrial and military styles crept into the mainstream fashion. People were finding ways to make a fashion accessory out of piece of machinery. And camouflage pants were ironically worn by anti-war protesters. By the late 1990s, rare culture swept through and people were looking for clothes that were more glamorous again. The grunge and the hip-hop style began to wear down, and people were trying to look for rich and cool new things. So now named brand designers were back in the big way.
What were some fashion trends in the 90s?
So, in the 90s, what was really big, because I remember getting my first pair, and they were called Cavariccis. And they were like MC Hammer pants in a way. He was big too back then. But they were kind of like wide pants in a way.
Like Janko jeans?
Kind of like that. But that was really popular. Wearing your clothes oversized was popular. One shoulder off of like overalls, one shoulder off, one shoulder on. Lots of t-shirts, like plain t-shirts, mid shirts, same kind of stuff y'all wear.
Kind of like what came back.
Well,
now?
yeah, what came back now.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah.
Okay.
Jordans were always big. Jordans were big for like ever. So everyone had Jordans. Vans were still big. All the stuff that you all have now is old.
Yeah.
That you all are now making new.
What were some like popular hairstyles?
So for me, another big artist was MC Light, and she was like one of the, and Queen Latifah, they were like the first female rappers that were also actresses as well as being rappers. And so she had a haircut that everybody.
The 90s brought a new wave of trendy music, styles, and movies. The 90s brought popular movies such as Aladdin, The Titanic, and Jurassic Park. Some common shows were in the style of sitcoms, like Full House, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Friends, and The 70s Show. Some common styles were overalls with one strap, scrunchies, and neon colors / prints on clothing. Some emerging technologies during this time that were unique to the 90s were the Dear Diary toys, the Game Boy, Nintendo game consoles, and Tamagotchis.
The 90s brought many old and new social pressures to this generation. People were raised in the 90s with different perspectives on social issues, such as immigration and racial issues. Racial issues were oppressed on this generation by parents and the government, but they always managed to voice their opinions.
Kind of like accepted. There was like the Rodney King beatings in LA, which spurred a whole entire like racial movement in the 90s.
Yeah.
So, you know, just like some of the police beatings of
Now.
now. So you kind of saw the same theme. But I really thought that it was getting better until recently.
Happening in the 90s, so especially in New York, drugs were awful. There were all types of drugs. Like you all have drugs now, but these were like bad drugs. And so that movie was one that was popular back then. Let me think, what else was really good? Higher Learning was one that I remember watching like my senior year in high school. Schindler's List. My high school, I went to Parsippany Hills, so the social studies class would often take us to the movies at that time. So Malcolm X was big. Schindler's List, I said. Higher Learning was one. And then Joy Luck Club was another one that came out. All like controversial movies, but movies that really made you think about what was happening in the world around us.
My final question is, how was your experience in interacting with people from different backgrounds?
Well, like I said, I went to Parsippany Hills, so it was really diverse. There were only 7 African Americans in my senior class of 300 plus. So we were always the minority, but I think growing up, these were the same kids that I hung out with when I was in kindergarten. So we always just kind of knew each other. Did we ever experience racism? Of course. It was there, but it wasn't as blatant as it is now. You may have had a small pocket of that, but you know, people just pretty much just like people for who they were. They were being nice, if they were cool, they wanted to hang out. That's what we liked about each other.
The 90s decade provided us today with trends, music, fashion. They also provided us with an introduction to social issue and allowing us to know that change is possible if we learn how to use it.